All right, ready to crack the code? We're talking everyday English expressions. You know those quirky phrases native speakers use all the time?
Right.
They're more than just slang,
Mm.
these little nuggets. They're packed with cultural insights. They can make or break your understanding of a conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
Ever wondered what someone really means when they say they're gonna hit the books? Or what's the deal with spilling the beans? We're gonna find out.
It really is fascinating how much these expressions um, reveal about the way we think and interact.
Yeah,
You're right, it's not just vocabulary, it's about sounding natural,
right.
like you're truly in the know.
Exactly. It's like learning the secret handshake
Yeah.
to a whole new level of fluency.
And that fluency works both ways,
Yeah,
Speaking AD listening,
right.
imagine you're at a party, right?
Okay.
And someone cracks a joke using an idiom you've never heard.
Oh,
You miss the punchline,
awkward.
you feel a little out of the loop. Mastering these expressions, it helps you avoid those awkward moments
Yeah.
and truly connect with native speakers.
Okay, so let's start with a phrase that's practically a national anthem. What's up? I mean, we've all heard it a million times, but have you ever stopped to think about what it really means? It's kind of a chameleon, isn't it?
It is, it is. On the surface, it seems like such a simple question.
Right.
But as with so many of these expressions,
Yeah.
it's more about the social dance than the literal meaning.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, in linguistics, we call these phatic expressions,
Okay.
phrases that are more about establishing a connection than exchanging information.
So when someone throws a "what's up" your way, they're not actually expecting a rundown of your day.
Exactly.
Okay,
Think of it as a verbal high five,
I like that.
the expected response.
Yeah.
Even if your day is a dumpster fire,
Uh,
it's usually something breezy,
right.
like not much or just chilling.
Keep it light.
It's about keeping the interaction light and positive.
That makes total sense. I've definitely been guilty of oversharing when someone asks "what's up,"
Oh,
only to get a blank stare in return.
Yeah,
Now I see it's all about maintaining that social harmony.
precisely.
Okay.
And speaking of social situations,
Yeah.
let's move on to an expression that's all about navigating those initial awkward encounters.
Right.
Break the ice.
Ooh, good one.
Ever notice how a well-placed joke or comment can suddenly just shift the energy in a room?
It's like you're taking a pickaxe to that frozen lake of awkward silence.
Exactly.
But wouldn't you say there are different approaches to breaking the ice?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, a cheesy joke might work in one situation but fall flat in another.
You've hit on a key point. Context is everything.
Right.
The ice you're breaking at a formal business meeting
Yeah,
is different from the ice at a friend's party.
very different.
It's about reading the room
Oh.
and choosing an approach that fits the vibe.
So it's more than just having a stock phrase up your sleeve.
Hmm.
It's about using your emotional intelligence to gauge the situation.
Exactly.
Makes me wonder if other cultures have similar expressions for navigating social awkwardness.
I'm sure they do.
But maybe that's a deep dive for another day.
Indeed. For now, let's switch gears and talk about expressions that reflect our experiences with ease and difficulty.
Okay.
At one end of the spectrum,
Right.
we have the ever-popular piece of cake. Now, this one might seem pretty straightforward,
Mm-hmm.
but I think there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, I love this one. It's so wonderfully visual. I mean, who doesn't love cake?
Right.
But I do see your point. It's not really about dessert, is it?
No.
It's about that feeling of effortlessness.
Yeah,
Like you're gliding through a task without breaking a sweat.
exactly. And it's interesting to consider why we use this particular image.
Yeah, why cake?
Maybe it's because cake is often associated with celebration and enjoyment.
Oh,
So when we say something is a piece of cake,
yeah.
we're not just saying it's easy. We're also implying that it's enjoyable,
Okay.
even maybe a little bit fun.
That's a great observation. It adds a whole new layer of meaning.
Right.
So, piece of cake isn't just about the absence of difficulty, it's about the presence of positive vibes.
Yeah,
Now, that's something worth pondering.
it is.
But let's flip the script and talk about the opposite end of the spectrum, shall we?
Okay.
When things aren't so breezy
Right.
and maybe involve a few late nights,
Yeah.
we might say we're burning the midnight oil.
Ah, yes, a classic expression.
Yeah.
It speaks to a certain work ethic
Mm-hmm.
or perhaps a certain cultural obsession with productivity.
Oh, interesting.
The image it evokes,
Yeah.
that solitary figure toiling away under a flickering lamp, it's almost romantic, isn't it?
It is. But it also makes me wonder, does burning the midnight oil always imply something positive? I mean, sure, it suggests dedication,
Yeah.
but could it also be a sign of poor time management?
Uh,
Or even a glorification of overwork?
you've raised an excellent point,
Yeah,
and it's one that deserves careful consideration.
right.
Are we celebrating hard work, or are we normalizing burnout?
Ooh,
It's a question worth asking ourselves,
yeah.
both individually and as a society.
That's a powerful thought, and one I'll definitely be chewing on. It is. But before we get too deep into existential work-life balance ponderings,
No.
let's explore another expression
Okay.
that's packed with visual imagery.
right.
Spill the beans. Now, this one always makes me chuckle because it conjures up such a comical image. Like, who's carrying around all these beans, ready to drop them at a moment's notice?
Right. It is a rather amusing visual.
Yeah.
And it perfectly captures the essence of the expression.
Okay.
That unintended revelation of a secret,
Uh-huh.
often with a touch of mischievous glee.
But sometimes it's not so gleeful, right?
Oh, no. Not always.
Like, you could spill the beans about a surprise party,
Oh, no.
which would be a major bummer.
Right.
So it seems like the emotional tone of this expression really depends on the context.
You're absolutely right. And that's what makes these expressions so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
They're not one size fits all.
Right.
They morph and adapt depending on the situation.
Yeah.
It's like they have their own little personalities.
Totally agree. It's like they're little linguistic chameleons.
Yes.
Blending into the conversation and adding a splash of color.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of color, let's shift gears and talk about expressions that paint vivid pictures of our emotional states.
Okay.
When we're feeling a bit under the weather.
Yeah.
It's like, well, like a grumpy cloud has settled over our heads.
It certainly is. And isn't it interesting how under the weather
Mm-hmm.
conveys a specific kind of feeling unwell?
Yeah, what is it?
It's not a debilitating illness,
Right.
but more of a general malaise, a sense of being out of sorts.
Exactly. It's like you're not quite yourself,
Right.
but you're not bedridden either.
Yeah.
It's that in-between zone of feeling.
Exactly.
And it's so much more expressive than just saying, I feel sick.
Oh, for sure.
It's like you're inviting the listener into your experience.
Yeah.
Letting them feel those raindrops of gloom alongside you.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Oh, thanks.
And on the opposite end of the emotional spectrum, we have the euphoric expression, on cloud nine.
Oh, I love this one.
Now, this one is all about pure bliss, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you're floating on air,
Mhm.
soaring above all your worries and cares.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of unadulterated joy.
Yeah.
Like you've won the lottery of happiness. And wouldn't you say it has a bit of a whimsical, childlike quality to it? Like you're imagining yourself bouncing around on fluffy white clouds.
I completely agree. There's a certain lightness and playfulness to the expression
Yeah.
that adds to its charm.
Right.
And it's a reminder that even in the midst of everyday life,
Mhm.
there are moments when we can experience pure, unbridled joy.
Absolutely. And it's so much more impactful than just saying, I'm happy. It's like you're inviting the listener to share in your exuberance,
Yeah.
to take a little flight with you on that cloud of pure delight. And I think that's the magic of these expressions.
Well, there you
Take us beyond the literal meaning
Right.
and allow us to connect on a deeper, more emotional level.
I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of deeper connections, there's an expression I think that often gets a bad rap,
Okay.
but it's actually quite nuanced. Cut corner.
Oh, cut corners. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, at first glance,
Mm-hmm.
it might seem like it's always a negative thing,
Right.
implying a lack of effort or a willingness to compromise quality.
Yeah, it's like you're taking the easy way out.
Right.
Which doesn't exactly scream integrity.
Right.
Right.
But I have a feeling you're about to challenge that assumption.
Well, you know me pretty well by now.
Indeed. What if I told you that cutting corners can sometimes be a sign of ingenuity and resourcefulness?
Okay, now that's interesting.
Imagine a scenario
Okay.
where a team is facing a tight deadline, limited resources.
It happens all the time.
By thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
finding clever shortcuts,
All right.
they manage to deliver a successful project
All right.
without sacrificing quality.
So it's not always about being lazy or doing shoddy work.
Right.
It could be about finding innovative solutions
Exactly.
within constraints.
Yeah,
Like that saying, work smarter, not harder.
exactly. And that's why context is so crucial with this expression.
Right.
You know, if you tell your boss,
Yeah.
I cut some corners on this report, it might not go over so well.
Probably not.
But if you explain how you streamlined a process to increase efficiency
Okay.
without compromising quality,
Yeah.
that's a different story.
It's all about framing, isn't it?
It is.
And being aware of the potential interpretations.
Exactly.
But wouldn't you say there are times when cutting corners is genuinely unethical?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if it involves compromising safety or putting people at risk?
Absolutely. There are definitely lines that should never be crossed.
Right, and that's where critical thinking comes in. Okay. We need to be able to discern when efficiency is a virtue and when it becomes a slippery slope.
This raises an important question for our listeners.
With that.
How do we develop that sense of discernment? How do we know when to cut corners in a clever way and when to stand firm on principles?
That's a fantastic question, and one that I don't think has a simple answer.
Right.
It requires a combination of experience, ethical awareness, and a willingness to challenge assumptions.
It's also about understanding the potential consequences of our actions,
Yes,
both in the short term and the long term.
absolutely.
So it's not just about mastering the expression itself,
No.
but also about developing the wisdom to use it responsibly. It's like you're saying, language is a powerful tool.
It is.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
Precisely. And that's why this deep dive goes beyond simply memorizing phrases.
Right.
It's about empowering you.
To use language in a way that is thoughtful, nuanced,
Okay.
and impactful.
I love that. It's like we're not just learning expressions, we're learning how to be better communicators.
Yeah.
How to navigate the complexities of language with both skill and integrity.
And speaking of navigation,
Yeah.
let's talk about another expression that's all about direction,
All right.
both literal and metaphorical. Hit the road. Now, on the surface,
Yeah.
this one seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
It means to start a journey, to set off on an adventure.
I always picture a classic road trip,
Oh, yeah.
windows down, music blasting,
Nice.
the open road stretching out before you.
Love it.
It's that feeling of freedom and excitement, like you're leaving all your worries behind and embracing the unknown.
That's a beautiful image. It
Thanks.
captures the spirit of the expression perfectly.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to consider how hit the road can also be used in a more figurative sense.
Oh.
For example, you might say, I'm going to hit the road on this project,
Oh, I see.
meaning you're going to put all your energy and focus into it.
So it's not just about physical movement.
No.
It's about momentum,
Yeah,
about making progress towards a goal.
exactly.
It's like you're shifting gears and putting your foot on the accelerator.
Exactly. And that's what makes this expression so versatile.
Right.
It can be used in a variety of contexts,
Yeah.
from the literal to the metaphorical, and it always conveys a sense of action and purpose.
I love how these expressions can be so multifaceted, like little linguistic gems that sparkle with different meanings depending on how you hold them up to the light.
I like that.
And speaking of gems,
Yes.
let's talk about another expression that's all about value and appreciation, worth its weight in gold. Now, this one is a classic for a reason.
It certainly is.
What do you say?
It speaks to the idea of something being incredibly valuable,
Right.
irreplaceable,
Yeah.
and the imagery it evokes is so powerful.
It is.
That sense of weight, of substance,
Yeah.
of something that truly holds its own.
It's like you're holding a solid gold bar in your hand, feeling its heft and density. It's not something you toss around lightly.
Right.
And that's the beauty of this expression.
What is it?
It conveys a sense of reverence, of deep respect.
Precisely. And it's often used to describe things that are intangible,
Oh, interesting.
like knowledge, experience, or even a good friend.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a way of saying that these things are priceless,
Right.
that their value transcends any monetary measure.
That's so true.
Yeah,
It's like you're saying, sometimes the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold.
exactly.
They're the treasures we hold dear, the things that enrich our lives in ways that money simply can't measure.
And that brings us to an important point that I think we've been touching on throughout this deep dive.
Okay.
These expressions,
Yeah.
they're more than just words. They're windows into a culture's values and beliefs.
Oh, that's interesting.
They reveal what we hold dear,
Mm-hmm.
what we find funny, what we strive for.
I love that. It's like we're not just learning language.
Yeah.
We're learning about human nature, about the shared experiences that connect us all.
Exactly. And that's why I find these expressions so endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
They're like little puzzles
Okay.
that unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And speaking of puzzles,
Yes.
let's talk about another expression that often leaves people scratching their heads. Read between the lines.
Oh, yes, a classic.
Now, this one is all about subtext, isn't it?
It is.
It's about understanding what's not being said,
Right.
about picking up on those subtle cues and unspoken messages.
You're absolutely right. It's about going beyond the surface level,
Yeah.
about delving into the nuances of communication. It's like you're a detective
Okay.
searching for clues,
Yeah.
piecing together the hidden meaning behind the words.
And wouldn't you say that reading between the lines is a skill that's becoming increasingly important in today's world?
Absolutely.
I mean, we're bombarded with information from all directions,
So,
and it's not always clear what's genuine and what's spin.
I completely agree. We're living in an age of information overload,
Yeah.
and it's more important than ever to be able to critically evaluate the messages we're receiving,
Yeah.
to ask ourselves, what's the agenda here? What's being left unsaid? What are the underlying motivations?
So it's not just about understanding the literal words.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the context, the subtext, the unspoken intentions. It's like you're saying we need to become savvy decoders of information.
Yes.
Able to decipher the hidden messages that are all around us.
Precisely. And that's why I believe that mastering these expressions is about more than just improving your language skills.
Right.
It's about developing your critical thinking abilities, your ability to navigate the complexities of communication in an increasingly nuanced world.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
And one that I think will resonate with our listeners.
I hope so.
We're not just learning how to speak English,
Right.
we're learning how to think critically, how to engage with the world in a more informed and discerning way.
Exactly.
It's like we're upgrading our mental software, giving ourselves the tools to decode not just language, but the world itself.
And with those upgraded tools, you're ready to tackle even the most challenging linguistic terrain,
Right.
which brings us to an expression
Okay.
that perfectly captures that spirit of resilience. Weather the storm. Now, this one is all about facing adversity head on, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it really is.
It's about riding out those tough times and emerging
Yeah.
stronger on the other side.
I love the imagery it evokes.
But it's
That sense of battling the elements,
Mm.
you know, of holding steady against the wind and the rain.
right.
It speaks to our inner strength,
Yeah.
our ability to persevere even when things get tough.
And it's a reminder that storms are a natural part of life,
Right.
just like the weather.
Yeah.
We experience highs and lows,
Mhm.
periods of calm,
Right.
and periods of turbulence. The key is to be prepared, to have the resilience and resourcefulness to navigate those challenges.
And sometimes weathering the storm isn't about going it alone, right?
No, not at all.
It's about seeking support,
Hmm.
relying on our community, and
Yeah.
knowing that we're not alone in facing those challenges.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that we're all interconnected,
Yeah.
that we have a responsibility to support each other through those difficult times.
Right.
And that act of supporting one another, that's where true strength lies.
That's a beautiful thought.
Thank you.
It makes me wonder,
Yeah.
do other cultures have similar expressions for overcoming adversity? I bet there's a whole world of wisdom out there just waiting to be explored.
There is. And that's the beauty of language. It's a constant journey of discovery.
Yeah, I love that.
The more we explore, the more we learn about ourselves,
Right.
about each other, and about the world we inhabit.
And speaking of journeys,
Yeah.
we're nearing the end of our deep dive into everyday English expressions.
Well, this has been fun.
It has. But before we wrap things up, I have to ask,
Yeah?
what's your top tip for actually using these expressions in real life?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's one thing to understand them,
Right.
but it's another to actually make them part of our everyday vocabulary.
You're absolutely right. The key is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to memorize a whole dictionary of expressions overnight.
Right.
Instead, choose one or two that resonate with you,
Mhm.
that you find yourself naturally drawn to.
Like if you're feeling super motivated,
Yeah.
you could say, I'm ready to hit the road on this project.
Right.
Instead of just saying, I'm going to start working on it now.
Exactly. It adds that extra oomph,
Yeah.
that sense of purpose and excitement.
Right.
And the more you use those expressions, the more natural they'll become.
Okay.
You'll start to notice them popping up in conversation,
Yeah.
in movies,
Uh-huh.
in songs.
That's like they'll become part of your linguistic landscape.
Exactly.
And that's when the real magic happens, right?
What is it?
When you start to think in those expressions,
Yeah,
when they become so ingrained in your mind that
Yeah.
you don't even have to think about them anymore.
precisely.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate goal of this deep dive.
Okay.
To empower you to use language
Mhm.
with confidence,
Right.
fluency,
Yeah.
and a touch of flair.
I love it. It's like we're not just learning expressions, we're unlocking a whole new level of communication.